Hello, everyone, and welcome to International Coaches Club, the podcast where international coaches share their stories and how they've made an impact on their sport in the US, from college programs to professional and national teams. I'm your host, Liran Zamir. His basketball journey began in Princeton University and continued professionally in Israel, where an injury shifted his focus from playing to coaching. That pivot launched one of the most successful coaching careers in international basketball. He started on the sideline with Galil Elyon and later joined the club he's most associated with, Maccabi Tel Aviv, where he collected championships, cups, and a global reputation. Through the early 2000s, his coaching career expanded across Russia, Greece, Italy, Israel, and Turkey. He led the Russian national team to a Eurobasket championship in 2007 and an Olympic bronze medal in the London Games. In 2014, he was the mind behind the first and the second Milano Miracles, guiding Maccabi Tel Aviv through one of the greatest underdog runs in EuroLeague history and capturing the title. That success propelled him to the NBA, where he became head coach of the Cleveland Cavaliers and took them to the NBA Finals in his first seasons. His achievements include EuroLeague Championship, NBA Eastern Conference Championship, Eurobasket Gold and Bronze medals, Olympic Bronze medal, EuroLeague Coach of the Year, Euro Cup Championship, Italian League Champion and Cup winner, Adriatic League champion, 5 times Israeli League champion, and 6-time Israeli Cup winner. David Blatt is my guest today. Coach, when you look at your career, which was long and successful and rich, what stands out the most?
What stands out most to me was that I found myself in a position where I had the opportunity to positively impact on lives, particularly the lives of players, but also of the fans and programs, cultures, maybe most significantly to share my personal motivation to bring people closer together through sport and to try to share with others, whether it be in different countries or different languages or different cultures, the meaning of working together and cooperating and sharing and sacrificing and learning and developing a sense of togetherness despite differences in background, in language, in geographic origins, and certainly in language and in culture, as I said before. Those things, honestly, are so much more significant to me than a gold medal here, or a championship here, or a cup victory there, or an NBA Finals across the pond. You know, some people have a hard time understanding that, but for me, in retrospect, and maybe more importantly, in the midst of doing, those are the things that spoke to me. Those are the things that meant the most to me. And I'll be forever grateful for the opportunity to work with a lot of good people in seeking a common goal and a common understanding, and using the vehicle of sport to do that.
I love it.
Leon, I don't think you're going to get a better answer than that, man.
That's the best answer I've ever received in my life. I'm not asking. That's fantastic. And then I have a follow-up question. You said you've worked with players in dozens of cultures all over the world, languages. So my question is, how do you adjust your communication style with each and every person or program or nation, and so everybody kind of resonates with you, but without losing yourself and the way you're coaching?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it has to do with cultural competency, and that's a wonderful philosophy that has many angles and definitions. But to me, it was always about understanding where you came from, as well as opening your mind and heart to the places and the peoples and the cultures of where other people come from. And when you're open to that and understanding of that and respectful of that, maybe most importantly, I think you have the opportunity to share with others and to work with others and to overcome what some consider barriers, but you can really effectively and in a winning way. I don't necessarily mean winning in terms of your record, as much as the way that you do things and the way that you work with others, that has a longer standing impact. And again, I go back to this over and over, that the wins, so to speak, for me, were the sharing of common goals and not allowing differences to keep us from cooperating and seeking uh, greatness, so to speak, and making a commitment to excellence that's necessary to be successful in any endeavor, particularly in the world of sport.
Beautiful. Okay, that's really really cool to hear. I have that shared background with you being an international coach here in the US, and I truly find myself sometimes struggling, but trying to find new ways to kind of overcome these, I guess, the culture barriers.
Mm-hmm,
So it's really
mm-hmm.
good to hear that from someone who did such a great job all over the world, not just in the US or Israel. But I do have a question, and I have a question. When you think about those great teams that you managed to build bridges with, that you coached, what did they all have in common beyond talent and their abilities on the court?
Well, in most of the situations, not all, but most of the situations that I coached in, I was able to, in large part, choose the roster and the staff that I was going to work with. So the number one thing was always character. Bring people of good character. And once you've done that, you have the basis for being able to work together with good people. And you go a lot further that way. Because in any walk of life, and certainly in the competitive world of sport, there's going to be difficulties. There's going to be challenges. There's going to be adversity that you have to work through. But when you have people of good character, that you can stand alongside of them and lead both from the front and the back, then you got a chance to be successful.
Fantastic. David, you coached all over the world at the highest level. And when you look back, is there a specific moment that you decided, I want to be a coach?
Well, my
Or
story is kind of unusual in that respect. That my end game coming out of college, for example, or even after my first years of playing pro basketball, my end game was not to coach. I didn't really think about making a career of coaching until after I was injured and had to retire due to an Achilles tendon injury that finished my career. Of course, all the years that I played, I always made it a point to ask the club where I was working if I could coach youth teams in the organization, just because when you're a pro player, you have a lot of time. And I wanted to utilize my time. And it was something that I enjoyed doing. So I used to work with youth teams in every club that I was coaching. And without even knowing it, I guess I was preparing myself for the next 30 years of my life after I finished playing. And I went into coaching almost on a whim. I was injured. I had to retire. I got a call even 6 months after my injury from a former team that I'd played for in the Galil, and they asked me if I would consider coming to be an assistant coach. And I had already had a job, which I told them, hey, if I can continue to do this, I'd be willing to do that. And that's how I started my career, honestly.
That's beautiful. Dave, did you coach in Liada High School?
For a short period of time in Jerusalem. The
Comment.
women, and I'll tell you something else. My first pro coaching job at the senior level was coaching women in Netanya in Israel
Yep.
while I was playing. That was the first title I ever won. Although much more importantly, I had a terrific experience with just a wonderful group of women, and we had success. And we won what's known as the Federation Cup. But more importantly, we were able to develop a wonderful culture and friendship amongst our players and our staff. And I had coached in Liada too, which was a high school situation, while I was playing in Jerusalem. Like I said, that's something sort of repeats itself. I had the opportunity to coach a lot of teams congruently with pro teams that I was playing for, and gain just invaluable experience in working with people and in cooperating with players and managements. So that helped me later on in my career. But really, at the higher level, my first experience was with women, and I loved it. It was great.
Really, really
Women are
good.
much better listeners. so so
Yeah. I hear you. That kind of takes me. First of all, I also started my career of coaching in Liada. I'm from Jerusalem, so I coached there for a little while.
wonderful. That's great.
And
What a great irony.
I know, and you mentioned that women are greater listeners, but I kind of want to take it to your to the fact that you everywhere you go, you gain success. You win championships, you win trophies, and again, you mentioned that the interpersonal connections are more important to you than that. But when you do that in Italy and in Greece and in Russia and in the US and in Israel, what do you as a coach, what do you bring? What's important to young coaches to bring to the table so everybody can relate to them and their philosophy so much?
For me, there's pillars of coaching that you have to be able to stand on. The first starts with knowing the material. I mean, you got to know what you're talking about, and you have to be. The second thing is that you have to be willing to educate yourself and to learn from others, and to be open to the type of things that you can learn both from doing, from seeing, from listening, from reading. And that's critical, because you're not going to sit in the same place in this profession, and if you do, you're going to go backwards, and you're probably not going to last. The third thing is, you have to decide what kind of coach you want to be. Are you going to be? I think there's two distinct streams of thought, and I will say this, that neither one is more correct than the other. But are you going to be a system coach, or are you going to be a personnel coach? A system coach is going to have his way of playing or her way of playing, regardless of where they work. And he's going to make those that he's working with play that way. And a personnel coach is going to understand what the skill sets and the personalities and the backgrounds of the people that he's coaching, and he's going to develop a system that works best for him and for them. So That's really important for you to understand what works best for you. And again, one is not better than the other. I played in both, and I've coached more from the personnel school, so to speak. The four things: you have to be adaptable. You
Mm-hmm.
have to, you're going to deal with all kinds of different challenges in this business, whether it be rosters, whether it be budgets, whether it be conditions, whether it be owners and managements. Again, this is on the pro level more so,
Yeah.
but it trickles down to lower level coaching. Um, and you have to be able to adapt to that. Also, real time, you have to be someone that has the capability to adjust and to modify and to react as well as act, because it's a dynamic game, and you have to be part of that dynamic. Sometimes leading it, sometimes responding to it. And finally, as a coach, and maybe this is more important than everything, Leon, you have to be a human being.
Yeah.
You have to have a sense of ethos and pathos and understanding and caring that's real, and be willing to understand people and their particular set of individual needs, as well as how they fit into team concept. Because basketball is a team sport. It's not tennis. Tennis, wonderful sport, unbelievable athletes, great players, but generally speaking, more than generally, that they're individuals. They're competing in a world that requires them solely to be responsible and control everything around them and their performance. In team sport, it's very different than that.
Mm-hmm.
And the team dynamic is very different than that, because each personality impacts the other. And each set of needs of the individual is part of what makes up the team. Being sensitive to people, being uh, having a personal approach to those that you're trying to get the best from them in the overall team concept. I think that's critical. I don't think it is. I know it is. And when you're working in different places like I have, you got to understand that, everybody's background is not the same. Everybody's needs are not the same. I mean, this is true of a homogeneous type of team too, but even more so, because things that affect one group of people may not necessarily be the same that affect others. The way that it, in fact, affects others, impacts others, based on culture, or based on background, or combining that very disparate group of people when you're coaching many internationals in the same environment. You got to be a human being. You got to care about your people. You got to be sensitive to their needs. You have to be able to incorporate that into a team concept.
Very good. Very good. That's a fantastic answer. And this is something that I also believe in. Sports, especially team sports, is about people. And I do want to touch on something a little more specific.
Sure, sure.
Americans culture love the underdog, love like hero stories. And then I'm from Jerusalem, but I'm a huge Maccabi Tel Aviv fan.
Hmm.
In 2014,
Yeah.
Maccabi Tel Aviv, under your leadership, won the EuroLeague championship, but it was definitely one of the greatest underdog runs. And I believe that, those people that you connected with would have ran through a brick wall for you. And I assume you connected with them in a level that was it's really hard to explain. But is there anything specific? Because, we love those stories about that group that made it so special that from not being in the loop, basically win it all.
Yeah, that was a very unique group of people. You know, we had a really interesting mix of internationals, you know, whether it be guys from Israel, whether it be guys from the United States, whether it be, you know, a guy from Greece, a guy from Australia, uh, and others from other places. You know, it was a very interesting group, and you know, it took us time sort of to find our way, both as a group of athletes and a group of people. And you know, once we were able to look past just the obvious, and that of course would be things that are analytically based or statistically based or formally based, you know, and get inside the ability to work selflessly for one another. And, you know, me as a coach to find out what pieces fit best um, in order to help the team be successful. You know, I think that's what made that year special because on paper, you know, and I've said this publicly, and I'll, I, you should look at the interview that I did after we won the EuroLeague, and you'll understand, I think, even better that I'm explaining it to you right now. But we became, you know, the whole became greater than the sum of its parts. And that was because of the people, you know, and us accepting one another as people and putting the goals of the team before the goals of the individual. And we were able to, you know, we were able to beat some great teams along the way after, you know, starting a tough situation, you know, but we stayed with it. And it's not how you start, it's how you finish in the competitive world.
Yeah. And I remember you saying that after winning I think the Eastern Championship with the Cavaliers, it's not how you
That's right.
start, how you finish.
That's right.
Fantastic. And then I do want to go to your next station after Maccabi Tel Aviv. You accepted the Cleveland Cavaliers role right
Yep.
after the
Yep.
European Championship, with the expectation to kind of take your time, rebuild the franchise, only to realize not too much later that the goals kind of changed a little bit. And my question is, and I don't know if you've been asked that before, but mentally, how did you mentally make the fast switch from taking your time to essentially, hey, your job is to win it all?
First of all, it's true. You know, I stepped into that job with a pretty clear understanding of what it was about and what was, you know, was a developmental situation in the beginning, which rapidly changed to a win every game type environment with expectation of all or nothing. So that was more an adjustment than it was just to, you know, to go from coaching overseas to the world of the NBA, which also, and I won't downplay that, that's also an enormous difference.
Hmm.
Enormous difference. I don't know that people quite realize how different a game it is in the NBA than it is from international play. And you know, we could talk from now until Tuesday on all of the differences, but you know, it's a whole nother world, and that, of course, was an adjustment too. And look, you know, I after graduating college, I'd spent my whole life overseas,
Hmm.
both playing and coaching and living. You know, to come back to the United States and sort of come full circle from growing up in Boston and going to college in the States and very much being Americanized. You know, I
Hmm.
grew up in you know, I am an American. I grew up in the United States. You know, that combination of differences was really challenging. I mean, really challenging. And you know, I don't ask for grace, and I don't expect it. But I will tell you this: that more than even going to other countries in Europe was challenging. whether I was coaching in Russia or Italy or Greece or Turkey or Israel, those are all very, very different places that required me to be open-minded and to be willing to immerse myself in different cultures. But just from a sports standpoint and everything that goes around the game in the NBA, because, honestly, in the NBA, and I say this carefully, you have the game, but you have the game outside of the game
Mm-hmm.
in the NBA. In the international world, it's more about the game itself,
Okay.
and that requires a different mindset or the ability to work in a different environment that's not only sports related. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So for me, that was really the biggest challenge.
Okay. And then you mentioned we can talk for days about the differences between the American game and overseas, but I was wondering if you can share one major difference between the NBA and Europe. It can be basketball, it could be about people or the systems,
Well, the first
whatever.
thing I told you again was the game outside of the game in the NBA
Hmm.
is significant and totally different. But just from a pure basketball standpoint, I mean, the main things are the way that the game is played, the speed of the game, the length of the game, the rules of the game, the personalities of the players, the financial aspects that definitely impact the professional side, the way that you can and need to practice,
Hmm.
given the length of the season and the expectations that go along with all of that, depending on what your roster is. Those are some pretty significant differences.
Yes.
I could
Yes.
simplify it for you. In the NBA, you have the defensive 3-second rule that changes the whole game,
Hmm.
depending on depending on how you want to play. In the NBA,
Right.
you have 20, close to 20 timeouts during the course of a 48-minute game. I mean, this is for an international, for a European, it's like night and day. You can't imagine how different that is in terms of how you're going to coach it.
Yeah. American love to extend their entertainment as much as possible.
And there's the game outside of the game. A big part of things and the reasons for that and for those rules being different, even the level of physicality is different, is
Yeah.
because, a big part of the NBA, and I do not say this, negatively, it's the entertainment aspect, which impacts many different aspects of coaching.
Yeah.
I
Um,
said probably, I remember interviewing in Greece. This is probably 9 years ago, 10 years ago, and people asked me what I thought most was going to change the game. And I think they expected to hear everything, about technical aspects. And I told them, guys, what's going to change the game is the internet.
mhm.
And that's exactly what's happened.
Interesting. How do you mean
Media,
exactly?
the media has driven certain aspects of what's important in the game to the 10th degree. Guys and people are sitting on their phones and watching replays of plays real time or judging the impact of an attractive action, knowing that is going to generate more attention to them and to some extent to their team. Just this, and this is almost in every aspect of life, the real time impact of information that's shared so quickly and readily has, in many cases, changed the nature of what it is that we're doing. On this, it's a whole nother subject. but
Absolutely.
it's very true. The motivations that people had or have, and the ability to manage a group within that environment is very, very different than it was some years ago, not that long ago. You know, our world has changed, you know, to the umpteenth degree in the matter of 10 years as opposed to the previous 3,000. I mean, it's just incredible how fast things are moving and how that manifests itself on in the world of sport.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Dave, I want to kind of touch back on you as a coach. You came to the NBA in a you were a super unique coach. You came from Europe. If putting all the differences aside and the things that you had to learn, if as an international coach, although you're American, but your career was overseas, as an international coach, do you feel you had any advantage over the American system learning things outside the US?
Yes and no. You know, and again, a lot of it had to do with my desire to do things differently
Hmm.
in the world of the NBA. But given the very rapid change in the makeup of the team that I was going to coach, you know, I wasn't really able to do that. You know, I couldn't expect more veteran, highly successful, um, experienced players to want to change the way that they played, so to speak, to suit my particular philosophies and my particular motivations for wanting to do certain things. You know, I'll give you a small example.
Yes.
You know, I really felt that zone defenses or matchup zone defenses or masking defenses in 2014 or 15 could have really been a good way to increase the efficiency and effectiveness of our team in the NBA environment because people weren't used to that, didn't believe in that, you know? So I kind of hoped that I could change the world a little bit as far as that aspects of the game. And it was not easily accepted, if at all. And now you look at the game today, the NBA is full of zone, is full of masking defenses, is full of different tactics and strategies for limiting the incredible offensive capability and firepower of teams. And of course, the wonderful talent that you have in the NBA. So, from that perspective, I might have been a little bit ahead of my time uh, as far as the NBA was concerned. You know, these are things that I had been doing in Europe for years. And it had more to do, again, with, you know, just understanding that we had to play a certain way that suited our players and suited the things that they were willing and accepting and comfortable with. And that was very different from my idea of how I wanted to do things, you know. And that's okay. I mean, that's life too. You know, sometimes, you know, you got to adjust. You got to figure out what works, even if it's at your own expense sometimes. And
I know
and
what you mean. And
that's
actually you're touching the next you're kind of flirting with the next question.
go ahead.
And I cut you right in the middle, but I was wondering what was the hardest leadership lesson you had to learn in kind of the hard way.
Listen, when you come into the league new, like I did, for example, particularly with my background, in in most places in international basketball, coach is going to be the dominant figure.
Hmm.
In the NBA, unless you're Greg Popovich or Eric Spoelstra or Rick Carlisle, and you have years and years and years of experience and of credibility that you've built, justifiably so, uh, you know, it's hard for the coach to do things indiscriminately, so to speak, of his own players. They're guys that have been there longer, that have found a way to be successful in their mode, so to speak. There's a lot of factors going on outside of the game that, have to be considered, or definitely are going to impact on your effectiveness coaching and leading. And I mean, I know personally, I found myself in a situation where I was a little bit, it was different for me, very different.
Mm-hmm.
And I just figured out a way to win, but I don't think I figured out a way to coach in the manner that I wanted to coach, which is okay, but certainly hurt my longevity in the in the business there.
Mm-hmm.
But that's okay.
You
The
think?
NBA for me was part of a lifelong experience in the profession that I'll forever be grateful for,
Mm-hmm.
and that I can look back on with a level of pride in doing it, not satisfaction and not fulfillment in doing my best work. And that's okay too. That's part of coaching.
Mm-hmm.
You're not always going to be able to, in every situation and in every environment, either do it your way or be totally comfortable or even fulfilled. And you just got to figure out, can I make this work or not? And that's okay. That's the that's life.
Yeah.
Not everything is roses. You know what I mean? And that's okay. That's part of the experience. It's part of the what you got to go through, and what you do with that going forward is the important thing. What did you learn? What do you take from it? How do you turn that into something good or better? And and hopefully find your way going forward. That's part of it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I really love the genuine answer, and I appreciate that. And I want to go and ask you about the international aspect of the game. When I look at the NBA, I see that all of the player of the year in the recent years are not American. Kind of now the NBA wants to start a league in Europe and so on and so forth. But I'm looking at from the coaching angle. When you look at young generation international coaches, not necessarily player, trying to break into the American basketball world, do you have any advice or anything that you wished you knew before coaching here?
I think that I started late in the NBA world. I was already 25, 26 years in as an international European coach, and I had no NBA coaching experience when I arrived to the league. So I would say maybe go a little slower, or come in at a position where you can learn and experience without necessarily being a head coach. I had the opportunity, to my first job offer was actually to go to
Golden
Golden
State.
State and to work with the great Steve Kerr, and to work in a great program like the Warriors, what they became.
Mm-hmm.
And who knows? That might have been a better way for me to do it. Take my time a little bit and to learn the ins and outs, so to speak, before I was before I was primarily responsible for a team.
Mm-hmm.
Um, to your question, looking back, I would say as an international coming to the NBA, one step at a time
Mm-hmm.
might be better.
Very good. Yeah, and I wanted to touch on that, but I'm glad that you brought it up, and it's very noble to kind of think outside how things would have been differently. Some people are very stubborn in their ways, and I love that you're always thinking that there are other ways and not one way is right. So that's
Absolutely,
very
not. Yeah,
inspiring.
you gotta have the willingness and the ability and the maturity to evaluate the situation and evaluate yourself in
Mhm.
that situation. And if you always think that you did everything right, you're probably very wrong. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
And there's nothing wrong with being self-aware. And if you're not at the moment, then at least looking back and saying, hey, could I have done this differently, or could I have done this better, or could I have approached things in a different light? Probably what you're going to find is yes. And going forward, that's probably going to serve you well.
Beautiful. Okay. We're coming towards the end of the episode, and for the young basketball coaches listening, I was wondering if you can share your favorite or the one that you think is most important drill on court, something to work on.
Favorite drill on court. You know what? I'm gonna copy the great Popovich here for a second, if I may.
Mm-hmm.
I had the opportunity to go and spend time with them in their preparation for a season, and to see the great Pop work, and to see great players like Tim Duncan and Manu Ginobili and Tony Parker, and
Mm-hmm.
just a whole slew of wonderful people around that organization. And I remember a drill that he used to do, and it was a foul shooting drill.
Mm-hmm.
And in that foul shooting drill, what he did was he split the team into two groups, and everybody was on the baseline. And one guy from one of the groups would go and shoot a foul shot. So he would have to make the foul shot. If not, everybody would, run one sprint up and down the court. But before uh, they did that, not only did he have to make a foul shot, he would also ask them a question, totally, generally speaking, totally unrelated to basketball. And each group had to give an answer, okay, after consulting with one another. In other words, they had to cooperate and to work together, knowing that some people may be able to, given their background or their knowledge, may be able to help the rest of the group to give a good answer, the right answer, and to keep the team from having to run, because everything in life has consequence. But you have to have more in your arsenal than just talent
Yeah.
or the physical ability to do things. At least that's how I interpreted it. And I loved that. I thought that was a great team building exercise, as well as a life enriching experience, because you're asking a question, that had nothing to do with basketball, but that maybe taught people something. And it certainly was also fun for guys to get together and to try to figure out the right answer, and as a group present that as the solution. And I always thought that was great.
That is.
And I really did.
I'm thinking, how can I, how can I take that to volleyball now? We'll see. That's really, really cool. I love it.
Yeah.
I did
Yeah.
want to ask you for the fans' sake as well.
Sure.
What have you been up to these
Well, I
these
now,
past days?
I now consult for a few different teams.
Mm-hmm.
Due to my condition with MS, I
Mm-hmm.
had to stop coaching about 6 or 7 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and I became a consultant. I still work with Maccabi Tel Aviv to
Yeah.
a certain extent, as well as with the Canadian national Olympic team.
Mm-hmm.
I do consult for different teams and different coaches. I also do a lot of lecturing for leaders, whether in the world of business or sport, on a number of different subjects, such as leadership, as team building, as problem solving, as the commitment to excellence. So I do an awful lot of public or private speaking, sharing my knowledge and experience, much like what we're doing right now.
Very good. Yes.
And I stay pretty busy.
I love it.
And of course, day to day, I'm working hard to stay in the best possible shape that I can, given my physical limitations due to the MS condition. And that's challenging enough, together with all the other things that I'm doing. But try to do it with good spirit and with commitment and purpose, and life lessons are all around us.
Mm-hmm.
And over time, if you learn the right way to do things, or the successful manner of carrying yourself, or the principles and the fundamentals of of being successful, you can transfer that over in anything that you do. And that's how I try to live my life, never forgetting that we're just people. You can be a coach, you can be a scientist, you can be a teacher. And I'm forever grateful. My mom, God rest her soul, she was a school teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Her specialty was two things. Number one, remedial reading, helping kids that have problems reading learn, and working with children that had disabilities. And I remember to this day, and this is maybe the most significant moment in my moments in my life. She used to make me come on the weekends with her to work with handicapped children. And I'll never forget to this day, sitting with a young, wonderful boy and helping him to write his name for the first time. And that had such an impact on me, and such a influence on how I led my life going forward, understanding that helping others and giving them the chance to, in a small way or a big way, to be the best that they can be, that was the most rewarding, fulfilling thing that ever happened to me. And I'm forever grateful for that. And you take that with you in whatever you do, and you try to carry that as part of your character and share that with others.
Beautiful. Thank
And
you
by
very
the
much.
way, you're not always successful.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But a big part of my makeup is never, ever give up. Never quit. You only lose when you quit. And I'm not going to quit, despite my, particular set of circumstances or what I've been through. And, that in of itself is fulfilling.
Very much so, and very inspiring. Thank you very much for sharing that. And then, would you want to elaborate a little bit about the MS, just for awareness?
Sure, absolutely. Publicly, it's very, very important to me. And I've shared on numerous occasions and continue to do so, both personally and publicly, that I do suffer from this condition, that my situation, although anyone that has MS is going to experience a very different set of circumstances and manifestations of the disease. Some are similar, but it seems, like no two people are the same that have this disease. And I'm more than happy and willing to share that I also am a member of this family. And, we all go through our set of challenges, because it is life-changing. And the important thing is, I think, that we are aware and that we educate ourselves or allow ourselves to be educated, and that we wake up every morning willing to face the challenges that come along with it, which are ever-changing, unfortunately. But to have an attitude and a presence of mind that allows you to continue with your life and to be positive and hopefully to be impactful in the ways that you can, and to be willing to share with others that maybe don't understand the disease, or maybe that have it and just need a friend or need support, if not even inspiration. A wonderful saying, which is not mine, but that I heard, that I have MS, but MS doesn't have me. And I think that that's the way that you really have to approach it.
Beautiful. Good, David. I wish you nothing but health, and I want to tell you, I want to be the voice of every coach in Israel, for that matter, because I'm from there, that you're a huge inspiration for everyone. Your career is very unique, and personally, you affected me, and I love your work. I love you as a person, such a mensch,
Thank
and
you. Thank
yeah,
you.
when you lit the Misuah on the 75th Independence Day, I was very emotional about that, and I thank you for everything. Before we finish the episode, I do want to finish on a high note, um, and I have a speed question run, a few
Okay.
questions that you can answer with a word or two.
Okay.
Okay, ready to go?
Sure.
All right. Who's the best player you ever coached?
That's a trick question.
Could be
Yeah.
on the court and off the court.
You could ask me maybe better, who was your favorite player you ever coached?
Okay, let's do that then. Who's your favorite player? Who was your favorite player to coach?
I had a guy in Benetton Treviso,
Hmm.
which was a wonderful program back in those days, run by the great Gilberto Benetton, and our general manager was the great Maurizio Gardini. And we brought in a young player by the name of Nicholas Zizis, who is now the head of the Greek Basketball Federation. No, not the head of the Basketball Federation. He's the head of the Greek national team program, or he's their GM, excuse me, not the head, the GM. Anyway, Nicholas was a great young player that was the ultimate combination of character, personality, performance, and commitment to excellence. And I can't say he was the absolute best player I ever coached, but in terms of the total package, I can tell you that my son, who was a pretty good EuroLeague player himself today, I always had hope that he would be like him. And I'm happy to say that he is in many ways. Certainly in terms of personality and commitment to excellence and team-oriented emphasis. So he was, and I coached a lot of great players. Don't get me wrong. I am not underestimating or
Of course.
lacking in value for others
Yes.
who may or may not have been better players, but in terms of the total package, I think he might have been my favorite.
Awesome. Next question. What was your favorite location to coach at?
Israel, naturally, it's part of my now part of my DNA. I took something from everywhere that I coached.
Hmm.
So let's say Tel Aviv.
Okay, perfect. What felt bigger, winning a EuroLeague title or getting to the NBA Finals?
EuroLeague title.
If you had a chance to represent Israel or the United States, who would you choose?
As what?
as a coach, national team coach?
First of all, I was the national team coach in Russia,
Hmm.
which is a very, very different place
Right.
from the team that you just mentioned.
Yes. Just for the sake of the podcast, because it's U.S. sports. But yes, continue.
I wish it could have been a national team coach in Africa, because
You.
that's a world that I never lived in, and I wish I would have been able to experience it,
All right. I love you
and
thinking outside the box.
and to work with the incredible um, bevy of talent and desire to move forward. So I wish I had that chance.
Very good. A couple more questions. What is the hardest Hebrew word to pronounce?
That's a great question. Never thought of it.
We can come
Halva.
back.
Halva.
Chalva.
Yeah.
I love it.
Because het is a really big problem for non-Hebrew speaking people,
Absolutely.
as well as the accent on the second syllable. People are not used to that.
Okay. Awesome. You like chalva, by the way?
Just got some last night. I went to
There we go.
a new opening of a restaurant in Charleston called Mazal or Mazal. Again,
Mhm.
the second accent on the second syllable.
Mhm.
Um, and the wonderful people there that own the restaurant sent me home with a beautiful bucket of halva.
Lovely.
It made my night
I love it.
because it's
Uh,
fruit and
yes.
it's lasting.
Yeah, it's true. Last couple questions. Which team has the best fans?
Maccabi Tel Aviv.
Absolutely. You get a plus for that answer.
No, it's a true answer. I mean,
Uh, what's the title you're most proud of?
that also is a tricky question.
Hmm.
Uh, גביע האיגוד עם האנשים של
I love it.
אליצור נתניה.
That's such an awesome answer. I love it. Can you elaborate why?
I was a player that got brought in, to coach a group of very disparate characters and personalities, and we made miracles with that group, both in terms of our understanding of the game, of one another, and the commitment necessary to achieve.
Hmm.
And they had to teach me as much as I taught them,
Yeah,
and I value that experience greatly.
I love it. And then last question. Do you regret anything in your career?
Anybody that tells you they have no regrets is lying. Absolutely bold-faced lie. We all have regrets,
Hmm.
but I look at at the regrets that I have in my life as the opportunity to learn.
Hmm.
Would I have done some things differently? Absolutely. But maybe I didn't have the knowledge or the experience or the wherewithal or the judgment to do that real time. The point becomes, what do you do with that afterwards? Do you wallow in the regret, or do you revel in the opportunity to improve?
Very good.
So more than one, plenty. And I hope I learned something from it.
I'm sure you did. And I want to finish this episode with wishing you nothing but health. I want to thank you very, very much for all of your honesty, curiosity, being here for us and share your experience. I think one of the common things that other coaches say is that we need to share more, have this as a resource for other coaches and with your experience sharing all of it today was a
I
really
couldn't, and I'll tell you this, I couldn't agree with those coaches more. I learned more from other coaches than I did from any videos or any books or any games that I saw, read, or worked in.
that's awesome.
My colleagues have helped me immensely in my career, and I am thankful to them, as well as my players.
Beautiful. Was there any last thing you wanted to add before we finish?
peace on earth and goodwill to men.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much for today. I appreciate
All
that.
right, brother.
Thank you so much. Thank you for listening to another episode of International Coaches Club. I was thrilled to talk with Coach David Blatt. His outstanding career is something very unique for every coach in any sport around the world. What I really like and love about his career and personality is that he finds success all over the world, whether it's in Greece, Turkey, Israel, Russia, Europe, America. He always gains and finds success. And he said, it's all about people. It's more important than a championship. It's more important than anything else. It's the connection with people that led him to success in different continents, in different championships and leagues. This is something I write about in my book, Don't Coach Like Me. That coaching is not really about the game so much. It's about the people and how you make them resonate with you and how you connect with them. That way, those players will run through a brick wall for you, like everyone ran for David Blatt. I was inspired by his wonderful story, his humility as a successful coach with so down to earth. So I really enjoyed this conversation. He also agrees that we as coaches need to share more from our philosophies, information, everything we can to help others around the world. And of course, he touched about his health condition, the MS, and to raise awareness. He's a true winner. And as he mentioned, he's a fighter. He will never quit. He will never stop. And I love him for that. If you like this episode, please like, share, maybe leave a comment. You can listen to us on Spotify and on YouTube. And I look forward to seeing you all in the next episode of International Coaches Club.